Is it possible to build wealth as an international educator? How will Middle East turmoil affect world markets in 2024? And what's next for cryptocurrencies? Welcome to the Investing Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and my mission here is to help middle income earners like teachers learn how to invest wisely and build financial freedom even in uncertain times. We're here to share our thoughts and opinions for real financial advice. Please seek the services of a professional financial advisor. Today's investor is Mark Ryan. Mark is the head of Specialists, Arts, STEAM, and Music at Raha International School, recognized as one of the top IB schools in the UAE. His impressive media resume extends beyond his work in K-12 education institutions to include the Louvre, Abu Dhabi, Blast TV, the Department of Tourism, and a number of other projects in the Middle East and Asia. Born and educated in Canada, Mark is respected around the world for his creative pursuits, running, and entrepreneurship, just to name a few. You can connect with Mark on LinkedIn. That's where he is most active on social media. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Are you ready to talk investing?
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. At the beginning there, you're kind of throwing all those things like, what is the future of cryptocurrency? And I thought, man, hopefully you have the answers, but I realized I'm the one that's supposed to be giving some insight to it. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, they're big questions, I realize, but we're going to have a fun conversation. Before we get there though, Mark, share with us about a moment of adversity that you've faced somewhere in your personal or your investing journey. What happened and how did you work through it?
yeah, like when I think about adversity, and especially when it comes to financial stuff, I like to put the different perspective on it about learning and about kind of growing through things. So I try not to pinpoint, and I will kind of say a little story here in a second that could be like a doomsday scenario kind of thing. But I think when you're investing and you're taking risks, you kind of have to realize that it might not go your way. And so I don't think I ever leaned into investing as the only purpose was for me to make wealth. And I know that kind of seems strange, but actually I lean into passions and interests when it comes to investing. And so I'm always trying to learn about projects or learn about companies or learn about things that I'm actually interested in and passionate about. And if they go sideways, then I think that I probably learned a lot of lessons along the way. So, I think when we go into cryptocurrency here a little bit more in depth in this chat, I got hit just like everyone else did, in 2022. Cryptocurrency started coming down, and you have your money in there, and you're kind of watching it kind of just slip away. And I think people could see that as like a moment of panic and how are you going to overcome this kind of obstacle. But I actually just really love the space, so I just kind of leaned into what lessons can I learn during this time, and how are things going to bounce back. And just sticking around during that time. Now, things are on the uptrend, and I never went anywhere. So it was kind of, sitting kind of sad for a moment, but actually taking that time to figure out what was going on and why were things going certain ways. And is this an opportunity to double down on some projects that maybe seemed really great when they were trading for 50 cents and now they're at 5 cents. So they should seem even better. So yeah, I'll lean into AGIX for that. I don't know if anybody is into Singularity. If not, Joe Rogan has a great podcast with the CEO of it. It's a cryptocurrency that basically is supporting networks that will be using their platform for sharing AI technology. If you believe in AI, and you believe that probably a lot of these big players will move to these very fixed networks to be able to share ongoing research and ongoing projects, and AGIX would be a currency or crypto token that would be used on that. And so, I got into AGIX at around 20 cents. And I know, Tim, I was constantly sending you messages on X, and formerly known as Twitter back in the day, talking about this project and telling you about it. And, it went down all the way to 5 cents at one point. And now, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, it was at $1.50 or something. So, it was just about believing in, and this was before ChatGPT came out, this Singularity.net. So it wasn't kind of jumping on this bandwagon of, there's something now with AI, find any token that has AI letters within it. It was something that was established already. And I think we'll go into a conversation a little bit later about which ones will fade away and what projects will stay and all that kind of stuff. And I think ones that have been around for a really long time, you know that they're there for a purpose and trying to solve a problem. And yeah, so AGIX was one that I watched go all the way down, but I've watched it go all the way back up. So
Incredible. Thank you so much, Mark. I feel like so many takeaways, right, from that story that you just shared, and a lot of good learning lessons. And you really sound like a lifelong learner. So, no surprise. I feel like teachers and educators should make pretty good investors, because hopefully we're approaching all of these spaces in a sort of methodical, thoughtful way. But let's rewind your story, the tape of your story, just a little bit further, because we have something in common. We have a shared homeland. And so I want to ask you, after earning 2 bachelor degrees in Ontario, Canada, what led you to work in Asia and then the Middle East? What has that transition been like for you, and what have been the main financial wins?
yeah, in 2005, I decided to leave Canada. I just graduated from Queen's University. And I think I wasn't an IB student growing up, but I think the values of the learner profile that run through the IB system were something that I actually, I must have just had great role models within my education space that really demonstrated about being open-minded and being a risk taker. And when we talk about investing, I think being open-minded and being a risk taker is definitely part of that journey. So I kind of just looked at what was going on in Canada at the time, and it was, there was not a lot of strings to kind of hold me to Canada. I thought, you can always come back and check things out. And when we talk about a little bit later, is it a great time for people to travel and be international? I think if you are young, like I was, and you have very few strings, I think, man, take a chance, take a risk, and go see what's around the world and how educators are viewed in different spaces. And when I went abroad to Hong Kong in 2005, 2006, it really shifted my mindset about the way educators are viewed abroad. Highly, highly valued in Hong Kong. And you felt like the work you were doing was really making an impact. And if you were really passionate about something, I'm very passionate in the arts, and that's kind of transformed here in Abu Dhabi. But in Hong Kong, it was the same thing. Reaching out, finding myself on television at one point, and just the fact that I was out and I was showing that I wanted to do stuff within the education space and reach students. And I don't really think I didn't feel that in Ontario at the time. When I was doing my practicum and teaching, I did my teaching gig. I went home, and if I told anybody about my passions and interests around education, I don't know, it kind of seemed like they had heard that story before. And so, that was kind of one thing that I would definitely say was amazing. But from a financial perspective, going international opened up housing, right? Housing is provided to you, or a housing allowance is provided to you. So that's kind of taken care of. You have a fairly good salary or package to kind of pull you to these places where they really have a need and a demand for international teachers, especially qualified in the certain curricula. So if you really know the IB system, then therefore you're more desirable, and you could probably be able to get a better package with that. And I think when you're trying to think about investing, if your housing is covered and you have a good salary to cover your food and your day-to-days, then you can look at where you put that additional money, whether you put that in a savings account or whether you have something to play around with. And that started at a fairly young age for me, where I thought, man, I got a lot of these things that I don't really need to worry about with rent, or, in Hong Kong, you don't have a car. Like, there was a lot of bills not piling up. So there was some money sitting there, not a lot, but enough to say, if this goes to zero, that's okay. But I'm going to take this and put it into projects or companies or things that I want to get interested in, and I want to see how they work more. And I think when you invest in things, just like when you invest in people or school, whatever, you put your time into it, you care more about it and you learn more about it. So I think investing has to link with that passion that you're actually caring about the things that you're trying to see grow, because you want them to grow to benefit yourself and your family in the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You touched on this, Mark, but from what you can see of the landscape today, and I know you're well connected in the international education community, not just in the Middle East, do you think it's still a promising financial path for young teachers who are, let's say, fresh out of college in North America? And I'll add this as well. I don't know, I'm sure you are following the headlines and some of the stories coming out of North America, but it's a hard time to leave college right now because rents have basically doubled in the last decade. So, how does that compare maybe with the Middle East? And yeah, back to this question, is it still a promising path?
Yeah, I think it depends on the strings that are attached to you a little bit.
Okay.
I think uh, I would highly recommend people coming to the Middle East, coming to Abu Dhabi, coming to Dubai. However, it's not the same as if you were coming here 10 years ago, right? People want to come to this region. It's been developed. There's a lot of opportunity. It's a very safe place, minus all the headlines of the rain and the water that we might have seen in the past few days. But still, it's somewhere where people want to go. So therefore, the packages don't need to be so competitive, I don't think, because they have the numbers. However, if you're still looking to go into Southeast Asia, where you can have amazing school, amazing facilities, amazing students, really build your career. Also, you'd have those things like the housing. You'd have a fairly good package to do with kind of travel and food, and your cost of living would be low. So it wouldn't be like I go back to Ottawa every summer, and I'm always shocked. Like you take a few $100s out to meet some friends at nighttime, and you're like, this can't be gone already. But it's expensive, right? And not just rents. And I find I was talking to some people about this recently about whether it's really expensive to live in Abu Dhabi, and I was saying when I go to Ottawa, it's expensive. When I go to Hong Kong, it's expensive. When I go to Abu Dhabi, yeah, it's expensive. But these are all places people want to be. So if you're willing to kind of stretch yourself and maybe be a little bit more open-minded to the landscape of international education and say, like, this is a good package. I'm not bringing two kids and all this stuff with me. It's myself, maybe a partner. Like, let's take a risk. Let's see what it is. Because what's the worst that could happen? You just jump on a plane and go back home. So,
Mark, when it comes to stocks, bonds, real estate entrepreneurship, venture capital, and cryptocurrency, which is your favorite investment class and why?
yeah, I think like when you get into investing, I think you have to diversify. I think you have to be not all your eggs in one basket. As an arts educator, it's going to be weird to hear my answer now, but it is definitely cryptocurrency, leaning into the NFT space. I got really big into cryptocurrency in 2000, 2001 because of the NFT space, and I was in the art room. And so I was looking at the opportunities that this was going to provide my students. And I thought, this is probably this digital space, these digital assets. This is something that I don't really understand. I don't really get it, but my students seem to get it. My students seem to be passionate about collecting things in their video game spaces and in their social spaces that they're on their devices. So let me lean into this. And so I looked into that space. I looked at different cryptos that were working on these platforms, whether it's Ethereum, or Solana or whatever, and kind of looked, okay, if I was going to be pushing my students towards these ones, like, hey, check out these NFT collections, what was the crypto that was kind of driving that space? And I really liked it. And like I got into a space where I was now seeing the accessibility and the reach that it would provide students to make digital assets, so they could make artwork in their class that wouldn't just be shared with that small community or have someone that needed a big car to come and pick up this canvas and get it framed or whatever. You could make something digitally, you could throw it on one of these platforms, and wow, it just goes around to anyone in the world in a snap of a finger. So it was something really cool. My students were really jazzed about it. NFT space is not hot right now, for sure. People look at them still as JPEGs, I would say. It's kind of gotten back to that. However, I still think there's potential there. I still see the way my students interact with digital media. And I think, okay, this is still really interesting. And I'm going to keep an eye out on the cryptocurrencies that are involved in that space, especially the NFT market. So, I love when big artists also get involved and create NFT collections. So yeah, I would definitely say crypto is my thing, but that's just linked to my passion of the arts.
Yeah, and I love that connection with your passions. I think that's probably a good guiding principle for investing in any asset class. One more question about crypto, Mark. So thinking back over the journey, and I love how right off the top you acknowledge the big dive that most cryptocurrencies experienced about 2 years ago, but we've seen a resurgence. So we've got Bitcoin in particular on another bull run. It's always sort of at the top, stealing most of the headlines. In general, where do you see crypto going over the next 24 months to 5 years, let's say?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot less fear when it comes to the currency space. I think you have a few platforms that maybe some people are still really cautious about entering, and maybe if there was a few more, so it didn't seem kind of like a monopoly at times when you look at some of the big players that you trade cryptocurrency on. However, with the climate of the world and things that are going on right now, you see like, man, when things really go south and maybe I don't have access to my bank cards, or I'm not actually able to get to my banking services, like I need to be able to go digital. And I think a lot of banks and institutions are going to be looking this way and adopting maybe their own types of cryptocurrencies, or leaning into and heavily investing into things like Bitcoin. So I do think that things are going to look fairly good in the next 5 years. Like, there's no financial advice from me for sure. I'll double down on that statement, but I think it is a great time to get in. I think there's a lot of small projects that will be gone and will go to zero. But if you look at the ones that have been in the game for a little while, if you're looking at Ethereum, if you're looking at Bitcoin, if you're looking at AGIX, look at the different reasons that these cryptocurrencies exist. What kind of problems are they trying to solve? Whether it's for the music industry and you're looking at audio, if you're looking at AI and you're looking at AGIX, or you're looking at NFT spaces and you're looking at Ethereum, or whatever it is, find out what it is that you're interested in and think, what are the top players? Who's been here consistently in this space? And I think those will do well in the next kind of 5 years. And the rest of it, I'm not sure, but I think it's good. I think it's a good space, and I think you're buying some projects that in 2022 or 2021 at these prices I would have loved. So.
Thank you so much. And you've touched on it a couple of times. I'm intrigued by the projects and the tokens that actually have some utility. And you made a connection with AI a few minutes ago. And I think I would be interested in looking at tokens that, as you say, have actual functional value and are being used as a medium of exchange or in another way to authenticate and to support a bigger cause. Thanks so much for joining us, investors. If you're finding value here on this video, give this conversation a like and make sure you're following Mark Ryan on LinkedIn. Mark, let's shift gears over to real estate. I happen to live in the greater Vancouver region, which, as you know, Vancouver and Toronto and here in Canada love to consider themselves world-class cities. I'm not always so convinced, but what are your thoughts on real estate investments right now in the Middle East? Is that a move that you've taken or considered? Where are you in terms of investing in property?
Yeah, it's kind of like hindsight is 2020, right? Like, I arrived in 2015. The property market in Abu Dhabi wasn't so hot. You're kind of looking at, okay, what are going to be, the big reasons for people to come here and work once kind of all these things are built up. They were still building a lot of theme parks. They're still developing their tourism industry. But I think I neglected to see that once you develop a lot of these spaces and create a lot of value for people to move in and move companies into these spaces, that property markets will reflect that. And we have seen a giant rise in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi in the past year and a half, 2 years. So I think right now definitely isn't the moment, at least for someone like myself, to jump into one of these new hot projects developing in one of these areas in Abu Dhabi. But I sure wish I did. I would have about 5 years ago. I've been in education now in the Middle East for 9 years, in the arts, in the STEAM, supporting teachers as a middle leader, and now I'm moving out into full leadership as a PYP coordinator. So that puts a little bit more time in my pocket here in Abu Dhabi. So I'll definitely be watching the space closely because, Abu Dhabi and Dubai, in particular for the Emirates, I think just have so much opportunity, and I see the government pushing and putting money in the right spaces. They're developing such a rich tourism industry, heavily supported by the arts. You have the new Guggenheim that's going to be opening in Abu Dhabi. You have the Louvre Abu Dhabi already. Sheikh Zayed Museum's about to launch. Yaz Island is fully functional with Yaz Bay. Etihad Arena is rocking. You have Dave Chappelle coming in here in a few weeks. So that you're getting the top of entertainment around the world. It's must be ranked one of the safest places for sure. I don't think I've locked my car now. It is a 2008 Grand Cherokee, so it's nothing maybe anybody's going to take. But I still haven't thought about the things that I think of when I come to Ottawa, when I come to Canada, with just how safe you feel when you're walking around. I'm not saying people don't feel safe in Ottawa, but here you definitely do. So I think healthcare, safety, tourism, the arts, everything seems to be growing the economy. So it's a good spot, but I think it's reflecting in that right now in the housing market. So things are not the cheapest that they've been since I've been here. So I'll wait a moment, but I'm not planning on going anywhere anytime soon. So I'll be watching the space closely. If anybody has any comments, send me some messages. Maybe some people know more than me.
Sounds good. Well, that is really intriguing, and I'd be interested to see. I think maybe after this conversation, I'll have to surf on over and check out the pre-sale condo prices there in Abu Dhabi, see what that looks like, and what the exchange works out to. But Mark, something also on my mind and on the minds of many is the political turmoil occurring right now in the Middle East region. Do you think that affects the markets and the economies? I know the UAE stays out of those skirmishes, but what are your thoughts on how that will affect market dynamics in the region over the next 12 months, let's say?
Yeah, well, they definitely have an effect, right? It has a lot with what kind of imports we're getting into the country. We rely heavily on imports here, and I think like whenever you get into those trades and things become more complicated, and regions are not able to freely share, then I think it reflects pretty heavily, and I've seen that as well, especially when you're looking at oil and gas prices and how that's kind of gone back and forth, and so I think it is going to affect it, and people are kind of constantly, maybe trying to get out of certain areas, and even when we talk about the property market, you see a lot of people moving into the space here within Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Not saying all of it is to get away from conflict, but some of it is. And I think when you have this influx of people and where they're putting their money and maybe back into investment here, it really kind of shifts the dynamic. So I think it has an effect. Like you said, the UAE doesn't like to get too heavily involved, and it's kind of growing up in a military family in Canada is kind of the idea. Whenever there's kind of conflict, you always kind of see yourself as the peacekeepers. And I don't know if the UAE is completely on that bandwagon, but I feel they're definitely humanitarians and definitely doing a lot to support the region. And it's a touchy subject, so I won't say too much about it, but I definitely do feel that there are those ties to growing up in Canada when my father was in the Air Force, and constantly there was conflicts, and kind of seeing how can we support and still keep our relations healthy and maybe not upset the markets too much.
Sounds good. And I completely understand. It's a delicate topic, but I wanted to get your bird's eye view there of some of the dynamics in the region from someone who is actually there. Mark, I know I want to come back to investing a little bit. You talked about crypto and your preferences and some of your interest in that space. So maybe there's not a whole lot of activity here in the stock market, but do you have a strategy or any preferences, ETFs? Are you a single stock picker or completely inactive? Where do you stand right now in the stock market?
Yeah, I think I'm invested in the stock market as well. I think it goes back to the things that I was talking about with crypto and projects like that, and where my energy went to. And I think with the stock
Yeah.
market, it's the same thing. I put my energy into companies that I'm generally interested in, and I see myself invested in, whether it's time or whether it's money, on a regular basis. So, I'm really big into electric cars. So looking at different companies that are producing electric cars like Neo, separate from kind of the Tesla giants. Also looking into gaming. I was talking there. You were speaking at the beginning with Blast.tv. These big players on online streaming for video game competitions, and we have the World Esports Championships here for the past 2 years in Abu Dhabi. Got to meet those guys and got to see just kind of a little bit behind the scenes when it comes to the gaming space, and then watching my own kids getting very invested, not financially, but with their time, into the gaming space. And so I've gone heavy into Roadblocks recently as of late. I think it's an amazing platform. I think there's so many opportunities, so much variety for actual creators in the space. So looking at that, and then looking at renewable energy, I know a great company called Plug. Now it hasn't done so well with me in the stock market, but again, it's something that I'm interested in. So I think that's how I've kind of played the stock market as well. Is that these are companies that I do see my family and myself putting time and energy into. So if I value that in my day to day life, then maybe I should check out what the growth is going to look like. So yeah, diversify within that space as well, not go too heavy into kind of one sector, but looking at how it's kind of affects me the day to day and what I can learn from it by being an investor in the company.
That's a similar philosophy, Mark, to one that I follow, and that is I tend to be a little bit biased towards stocks that I know, like, and trust, use every single day. And so companies like Tesla and Apple, Google, Amazon, I mean, these are boring. These are not surprises or dark horses by any stretch, but they tend to perform over time, and that's a good rule of thumb I've found to follow for sure. I want to just check in quickly on your highs and lows, if you don't mind. And I know this takes some transparency, so I appreciate whatever you're able to share. But let's start. And by the way, I'm never pressing you for dollars. All right, I need to say that to every guest. But let's start at the high. What's been the single most positive investment move you've ever made?
Yeah, it has to be AGIX for
Yeah.
sure. I was in it way before anybody else was really screaming about it. Now, to be fair, the CEO was on Joe Rogan, so he wasn't a secret,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the AI buzz that we're now talking about with everything. So watching that, I doubled down when that thing was at 5 cents. It's I think maybe it's around 80 cents or 90 cents now. It could be almost
Wow.
pushing a dollar, but yeah, that one's been good because that's a significant improvement in the investment. That being said, that goes to the side of all the other cryptos that I was looking at in that space. They all did not do that jump back up, right? So that was pretty hard to swallow as well because you see great projects, whether it's in the music space or whether it looks like it's going to be something that could fight with Ethereum or one of these big tokens, and it doesn't. It does nothing, and you feel like okay. So those things have been rather tough. Looking at this renewable energy stocks, especially within Canada, I thought would do a lot better than they have. Same with the electric car business. I talked about Neo. It hasn't done very well. I still um, kind of yeah, really like where they're going, and do follow them actively, and have I'm quite optimistic, but it hasn't done what I thought those spaces would. And I think you could probably throw Tesla up there on that if you were a little bit late to the punch. Now if you were early, then fair enough, but if you're any time of as of late, then yeah, I think so. My big win would definitely be AGIX. AI helped me. I think it bumped that way up, and yeah, the rest have been just kind of a lot of learning and a lot of fun. And I think I have fun with everything I do with investing, because when it comes to it, the way I kind of pinpoint is roof over my head, money for food and kind of entertainment purposes, put a little bit of money that's just kind of sitting there as if I was like living in 1940 or something, pushing it under my bed. And then put money in things that I'm interested in that I hope will grow. And if they don't, then I learn from it and I pivot. The famous COVID times word, bring that pivot word back.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Wow, I completely forgot about that, but you're absolutely right. That was a big deal for a while. Mark, this one is wow. I mean, we all have a list of regrets, so I need to narrow this somehow. I suppose maybe if you need to pinpoint it, if you could go back 20 years, and I mean, I'm 45, so if I could talk to my 25-year-old self, kind of idea, what would be one change that you wish you could go back in time to make?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna flip the question a little bit and say
Okay.
from the perspective that there's no going back, right? And I wouldn't if
Hmm.
I wouldn't change almost anything that I
Hmm.
have done, whether it's in my investment portfolio or my education career or kind of opportunities that I've seen missed or taken. I think you you play, you learn, you grow, right? And I think every mistake that I've kind of made or didn't get into it, I had at one point a buddy of mine sleeping on my couch for about 6 months in Hong Kong. I just met him recently, and he's a millionaire from an Uber investment that he made back then. Would I think back and talk about Uber and those things? Sure, but actually, that wasn't going to happen anyways. That's not where my mindset was. I actually remember sitting down with someone that this is way before they launched Uber, even in China and even in Hong Kong, and it just sounded ridiculous to me. It sounded crazy to have a private driver service in a city where I thought the metro was amazing. And I thought, like, I see taxis everywhere. I go down, but I didn't realize that people would really love to be able to know where their car was, call it up, track it. This is the whole kind of thing. Get into a car where you're not given any cash when you get out. You arrive somewhere in a Lexus. Like, I didn't think these things would fly. I know I don't need to explain Uber and its success or not success in a business standpoint or however you look at that company. But yeah, I tend to try to not look back and say, oh, I should have done this or should have done that, because I have seen people succeed really well in opportunities that I definitely could have gone down. But I think the choices I've made, and I take it back to the NFT space again. Like, I get into things that I'm generally using in my day-to-day life that I'm generally interested in. I'm not a big investor actually just putting money in something, hoping that when I'm 70 something or whatever, I'm going to be rich. I want to I want to make strong financial decisions now, but I want to learn and I want them to affect my day to day. So if they don't, then I'm not really that interested, to be honest.
Thanks for tuning in to the audio only version of the show. Podcast listeners, consider adding the Investing Teacher podcast to your daily commute. Mark, what is one specific investment that is getting you excited at the moment? We've talked about AGIX, a fair deal. Is there anything else that you are watching right now?
Um, you know what? I won't say AGIX again because I think it actually has had its a little bit of a run. So I think it's not a bad investment. I don't think. I do think that there's a lot of potential for growth within that space. I, I'm still keen on the gaming industry. I think Roadblocks has seen a massive hit as of late, but I think um, I don't think that platform is going anywhere anytime soon. I think actually we'll probably see more partnerships when it comes to Roadblocks. So I'm not saying specifically that one, but I would look into the gaming space. Companies that are actively creating opportunities, not for their fixed game, for the expansion of how it moves into other networks. Something like Minecraft, we've seen them pushing into Minecraft education and how some of these things that students are just so engaged with how they can utilize other opportunities. And I think Roadblocks is one that's going to be coming to the education space sooner rather than late. It's really difficult for kids to make games on it within school right now because you have to be kind of on a device, not an iPad. But I think that's going to shift, and I think you're going to see that engagement kind of play a big part in its development. So I say Roblox. It's really fun, and I watch what's going on in my household, and that thing is going on.
We did not talk off air about Roblox at all, but it's just fun. I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I actually tweeted over on my Teachers on Fire X account, hey, are there any educators who are using Roblox in a school setting? Because like you, I see how kids in the sort of middle school age are crazy about that platform. And I love the fact that it has a creative piece to it. So it's just really fun to hear you going on about Roblox. Mark, what is one piece of advice that you would share with middle-aged earners who are typically earning a reasonable salary? They're contributing to their pension plans. I'm thinking of those educators who are at or near six figures. They've been teaching for 25 years. What's your advice in terms of looking forward?
Yeah, I think you have to, and this is something that I'm looking forward to in the PYP coordinator role is, I think people have to get back to their passions when they're looking at things within their life. And I think sometimes, I noticed this as well when I went into my 40s. You you tend to start thinking maybe more strategically about where I should go and what I should do and what kind of role I should have, where should I put my money, what's safe or not. And I think we need to lean back into the things that we're passionate about. And I would say go heavy into what you're interested in. Find if you're really big into Harley Davidson motorcycles and you love the check out that industry, see what's going on, do some research, get yourself invested in the things that you love. And I think, I don't want to come on here and sound kind of sad or something, but I really dislike the idea of investing for the end, for when your journey is done in education or whatever it is that you're doing. I think start it now, enjoy the time you have now. Take that small amount of money that you're allowed to hopefully not go to zero, but use that as a tool to drive your passions. And when you do that, I think it just opens up so many more opportunities because you're using it on the day to day. You're talking about it in a passionate way to others because you actually care. It's not that you just put some money in the S&P 500 and you're going to go up and tell someone about it, because that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, they probably don't need to hear me say lean into their passions, but I think sometimes we forget about them, and we don't realize how integral they are when it comes to driving us. And don't wait for 65, 72, whatever it is that you're hoping this is all kind of pans out. Kind of start now. Make the most of what you got.
Mark, let's keep going on the passion theme, and just following you is so inspiring because you model so many different passions and interests. What's another area of investment for you? And so here I'm talking about other forms of investments of time, energy, and attention. What is it that ignites your passions and brings you alive as a human being right now?
I think it's been a constant probably for the past 20 years, but just connecting with the community. I think I get so much energy and joy when I'm linking with things going on in my community that, yes, can benefit me as an educator, and I can learn things, bring them into my classroom, or opportunities for my students. But it's just finding ways within the community that I can kind of link in. And, like you said at the beginning, the Louvre Abu Dhabi has been an amazing space for that. The opportunities that have happened there when it's leading master classes in stop motion animation or taking over the Louvre with thousands of students to ignite kind of their interest in museum life and then the arts, I think is really amazing. So something that ignites me is just leaning into the community and finding those opportunities that I think a lot of people overlook. And I give you an example again, back to the blast.tv. When I find out that there's an event, and I kind of want to do it with the Dave Chappelle thing, but I can't find my in. I'll keep working on it. But if I hear that something is going on, I think, how can this, number one, how can I get involved and learn something from this space and learn something from those who are involved in this industry or whatever it is? And then how can I link it to the classroom? And, we had Blast TV and they had the World Championships. And I thought, this is amazing. Reached out to the people running it. How can we support? And at the end, we have 30,000 students invited to the World Championships from Talim, the company that I work for here in Abu Dhabi. And I think, those are the things that kind of ignite me, and I know kind of put me on fire. And I know that's not the podcast that we're on now, but I'll just give you a shout out there.
Love it. Thanks so much. Share about a personal habit or productivity hack that has contributed to your investment success, or maybe not. Maybe it hasn't contributed directly. I'm thinking of your love of running. Now, I remember listening to a podcast with you, and I believe it was your friend at Deep Teaching, talking about how your body has, like mine, I mean, your body is not quite the same as it was 20 years ago. You're probably not winning races anymore, but I guess I'm leading you toward running. It might be something else, but how do you respond to this question?
Yeah, well, it's Father Time is a cruel one, but I think when it comes to those things, it's about consistency, right? I think when I started viewing myself as a runner, I was around 18 years old. I'm 42 now, and I don't think I've ever not run. And I've never really been injured, knock on wood, from running. And I think I say that just because I was always fairly consistent. I always went out, I wasn't showing up and doing a marathon, taking 6 months off, and then someone would be like, hey, we're going to do this next extreme thing, and like push my body, like joining a CrossFit gym or something, doing something really intense. I kind of just stayed consistent with the things that I really liked. And that's really helped me to grow. And I think that's the same thing with the investment space as well. And maybe I would say also resilient. I kind of find something I like, I find interest in it, and I don't leave it too quickly, even when things maybe start getting hard. I remember, showing up in Hong Kong in 2005, 2006, and then winning that big race they have there, Standard Chartered 10K in 2009, 2010, not getting completely destroyed. But that wasn't going to stop me from entering in 2011, because running was my thing. Like, being a competitive runner was who I was. So it was being resilient, bouncing back, and just consistently doing things that drove me. And I think, I'm not winning races anymore, so I have to kind of shift the type of runner I am. And, I'm excited. I can announce here, not that everyone in the investing teachers circle will be that interested to hear, but I'm starting now kind of couch to 5K educational teacher runs within my school organization, kind of leaning more into being a coach and to kind of mentoring people with that consistently, because I will be there running. That's for sure. I will be there in the morning, and to kind of drive and kind of motivate people to get going as well. So that's something I'm excited that's going to be happening in the early mornings in May, very early in Abu Dhabi, because it gets hot quick.
All right, meet Mark. Be ready, educators, and I think you said students will be a part of it too.
Yeah, the whole thing, the whole right. Community.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I am running. I've mentioned this annual run here in Vancouver in the past to you, but I'm running it again in the morning with over 40,000 runners in the city of Vancouver, and 170 from my school, including a handful of fifth graders and sixth graders. And I'll tell you, Mark, my main goal is just to finish ahead of those little guys, because they come. They don't fool around. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Keep your elbows out. Keep your elbows out. That always helps with students in running.
Yeah. Mark, as we wrap up here, a few last rapid fire questions. Tell us about one person that we should follow on X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and share why they've been inspiring you lately.
Well, let's shout out to my boy, Ben Bulger. He's on LinkedIn. He's doing financial literacy for students at a young age, getting students to understand how to be responsible for money, how money works. He's doing it in a really engaging way with a lot of schools in the region. And, I don't want to say he put his money where his mouth is, but he's doing a 300-kilometer challenge this month, getting out running and meeting educators and going for runs with them and talking about the importance of financial literacy for students. So give him a follow. I think, again, he's passionate about it. He's bringing it into the classroom. He's doing it for, I don't want to say good cause, but he has a real drive, a real mission. And I think that's someone people should be following. Also, I'm going to give another couple of shout outs. Just if you check out Matthew Reed on LinkedIn, Amazing business operator, started in Hong Kong, has businesses in Las Vegas, Dubai, all over the place. And my boy Dan Rupp. So check out Dan Rupp. He's started an investment fund in Hong Kong. Just people who are just so passionate about what they're doing. Find those people.
Those are great names. Thank you so much. You kind of answered one of my next questions as well, which is recommending a future guest or two for the Investing Teacher podcast. So thanks, Mark, for those. And then I guess my last question here for you before we close, recommend a book. Is there one that you've been reading lately or one of your all-time faves, and tell us why you recommend it?
Yeah, I would say I'm going to lean into something completely opposite of what I've said this entire time. And so if you look at The Simple Path to Wealth, J.L. Collins, if you're looking at just low cost index funds, S&P 500, play it safe, take that little bit of money, be consistent with it. I think you'll do well. Like that is a no-brainer. If you don't know anything about investing, if you're nervous about it, I think listening to my advice with NFTs and crypto and Chinese electric car companies, that's probably the risk taker angle, and for someone who's really into doing their own research and following the things that they're passionate about. But I think playing it safe is also cool. I'm not here trying to say that it's not fun to just be part of something that's going to support you and your family as you grow. So.
That is a great pick. I'll be taking a look for that title. And I got to say, you've mentioned NEO a couple of times. I've got some colleagues, Mark, at my school who are deep into NEO and really doubled down. So we're all cheering on NEO, hoping for a nice comeback at some point. Mark, this has been an absolute blast. What are the best ways for my listeners to connect with you and get to know your work a little bit more?
Well, I think your listeners are lucky, because if this was like 3 or 4 years ago, they'd have to listen to me running and then yelling at them about different topics every week on old school Twitter, or X as we call it now. But if you just jump on, I'm fairly one platform based now. I'm on LinkedIn, so jump on to LinkedIn. I'd love to follow people's journeys if you're passionate about whatever it is, whether it's running, investments, starting companies, doing gaming, whatever it is. I'm really interested to follow your journey. I think, when I said before about the best thing is about linking with people in the community, I also mean our social community. It's like finding ways to make us connect, because when we do that, we're better for it.
Beautifully put, Mark. Again, I want to thank you so much for sharing some of your weekend with the podcast today. That is a true gift, and I mean that. I'm very grateful. Investors, I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and I'm so thankful that you decided to spend some of your day listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed the content you heard today from Mark Ryan, make sure to connect with him. And like I said, he's very active on LinkedIn. Lots of great value there. In the meantime, keep investing, and I'll meet you next week right here on the Investing Teacher Podcast. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you guys.